In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to replace your water pump in your Subaru Forester. It's located in the engine compartment near the serpentine belt. Take your negative battery terminal off. Use a 10mm wrench. I am going to take out these plastic fasteners first to disconnect the grill. For these, you gotta get your trim tool in there and pop that up, and then it'll come out. Next, you're going to take these out on the corners. All right, now you got to remove these. So remove these clips also. All right, so once you remove these, and slide that out. Now you're going to use a 10mm socket. And remove this cover. Once you remove that bolt, you can pull that out. So in order to get this coolant reservoir out, you're going to pinch this bracket in and use something to pry this away. You're going to disconnect your hose and then pick this up. All right, we're going to use a 12mm. We are going to remove these 4 main bolts. So now we are going to remove all right, and then you're going to go to the other side and do the same. All right, so now there's one more on this side and same on the other side. Once you get this out, make sure you have a hand on it because it will come down. All right, so now we're going to drain our coolant out of the radiator by removing our petcock. So you're just going to use a Phillips screwdriver. And unscrew this. Just be ready to catch the coolant with a drain bucket. All right, so now we're going to put our petcock back in now that we've drained the radiator. All right, so now we're going to take off our hose. I'm going to crack loose the hose first, remove it. And just put that over there out of the way. So now we're going to take our bolts off with a 10mm socket. You're going to use a 10mm socket to remove our bolts attaching the fan to the radiator. Typically they would come out easily. Our vehicle is very rusty. We're going to have to replace the bolts and nuts. All right, so now we're going to disconnect our connector from the fan. I'm going to use a little screwdriver, push in that button. All right, put that off to the side. Now you can pick up your fan. And pull it out. Okay, so now we're going to take our 10mm socket and we are going to temporarily leave this belt on And we're going to loosen up these 3 bolts for the water pump pulley. You may have to hold it still even though you have the belt on. I'm going to leave them in for now until I take the belt off. Okay, so now we're going to remove our serpentine belt with a 14mm socket. And you're going to push down and slide the belt free. I do want to make a note that you should always draw a picture of the belt pattern before you take off a belt, in case it's hard to find or not in your manual or on the engine compartment somewhere. And take your 10mm socket and finish taking off this pulley. So now you're going to take a pry bar and there you have it. Okay, so now we're going to use a 10mm socket on our water pump bolts. I'm going to do some from up top and some from underneath. So now we have easy access to our bottom bolts. All right, so now you want to put a drain bucket underneath, if you haven't done so already. And take the water pump off. Now that we've taken the water pump off, we are going to clean up the surface area the best we can. Don't use anything metal on it. You don't want to gouge into that aluminum. If you're going to use a power tool to clean it, make sure what you're using is not going to grind into it. I usually stick a rag inside if I'm going to clean around the surface with anything more than a razor blade, plastic razor blade. This prevents stuff from going in. So now we've installed our new gasket and our new water pump. And like so, we are going to put it on, making sure the gasket stays in its place. I usually start a bottom one first, and one top one. All right, so we are going to put these in finger tight. And then we are going to torque them to 4.7 foot-pounds. There we go. And I would just double check them all, make sure you got them all. All right. So now we're going to put our pulley back on. All right, so now it's time to install our pulley. You're going to be lining up your smaller holes. Unlike taking it off, it should be easier to put on since the new water pump is not rusty on ours. Just going to snug those up, and then we're going to torque them after we put the belt back on. So now we're going to put our serpentine belt back. I'm taking out my trusty drawing of the pattern. Alright, so once you're ready, you put your 14mm socket on the tensioner pulley and push down and slide it on to the alternator. Everything looks good, so now I'm going to slide it on. Alright, so we are going to torque our pulley bolts with a 10mm socket to 10.3 foot-pounds. If it starts to spin on you, you can hold it with a pry bar or your hand. It's not a very high torque, so it shouldn't be too hard. Okay. And we're there. So now we're going to put our fan in. I'm going to slide it down gently. There are two little spots that it sits into. So you're going to want to find those, push it down. Now we're ready to bolt our fan onto the radiator. Okay, so now we're going to tighten it up just until it's snug. I used a 10mm socket. All right, so now we are going to put our connector in. Now we're going to replace our upper radiator hose. Alright, so now we are going to put our cover on, serpentine belt cover. We use a 10mm socket, snug it up. So we're going to put our intake in. All right, we got one in, two in, that's in. Now we're going to put our grill back together. our plastic fasteners. So remember to put these in the right spot. These are the only ones that look a little different. All right, so now we're going to put our cover on. I'm going to start by putting in my bolts. So there's 4 main bolts. There's another one over here, but it's broken, so we're going to use a wire tie. All right, we're going to use a 12mm socket to tighten up these 4 bolts, 3 bolts. Used to be 4. So now we're going to put our grommets back in. And the last one's right here. Now we're going to do the same on the other side. So now we're going to install our reservoir. There's a bracket down here where this goes into. So you're going to rest it in there. And for this, there's no bolts. It just slides in once it's in the bracket down there. It slides in this way. And then push it in. This hooks up here. Okay, so now we're going to fill up our coolant system with the manufacturer's recommended specification. And take your cap off. You can use a funnel or you can use a fancy funnel. So now you're going to fill it up. So you want to fill this up till it doesn't go down anymore. And then at that point you're going to start the vehicle. You're going to let it run till it gets up to temperature. You're going to put on your heat. And wait for the thermostat to open. You'll know that happens when the antifreeze gets sucked down, and then you're going to top it off. So now we've run the vehicle, we've topped it off. I'm going to take out the excess coolant, and I'm going to fill up our reservoir. We're going to fill that to the max line. All right, so now we can take this off. Put our cap on. So now you can go take your vehicle for a test drive. Make sure the temperature gauge stays where it belongs. Take a deep breath, because this job is done. Now we are going to place our negative terminal back on the battery. Push it down, snug it up. And once that's snugged up, make sure that this is back on the stud that it came off of.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.